Additional videos have emerged showcasing armored personnel carriers arriving in Nigeria via an undisclosed airport in River State. If you possess familiarity with these armored personnel carriers, we invite you to share your insights in the comments, speculating on their likely country of origin. The distinctive paintwork suggests that their destination is the Sahel region, implying their deployment may not be intended for use within Nigeria. It appears that France is potentially adopting a military strategy akin to the one employed in Ivory Coast back in 2011. In that instance, rebels served as ground forces to apprehend the former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo. We'll delve into this comparison shortly. Now shifting our focus to the latest developments opposing military intervention in Niger, Russia has issued a cautionary message to ECOWAS, emphasizing that any military engagement in Niger could lead to a prolonged and contentious confrontation. Russia's foreign ministry asserts that such an intervention would destabilize the broader Sahel region. Regardless of personal views on Russia, this observation holds truth, akin to how even a stopped clock is accurate twice a day. In response, ECOWAS has responded in kind to Russia's stance. They emphasize that accountability would be pinned on Russia if the Wagner Group becomes embroiled in the Niger Republic. According to Ambassador Abde-Fatau Musah, ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, the Wagner Group is allegedly present in Mali at present. An understanding exists between the Malian government and the Russian Federation. ECOWAS asserts its intention to hold all regional nations responsible for any breaches of human rights or instances of devastation resulting from the actions of these private military contractors. Considering the ongoing back and forth between ECOWAS and its commissioner, perhaps avoiding military intervention altogether could be a more prudent course of action. This approach could undoubtedly foster peace in the region, negating the necessity for external military entities or foreign nations to intervene. It's essential to recall that both Burkina Faso and Mali have already pledged their assistance to the Niger military, vowing to safeguard their nation should an invasion occur. Such an invasion would be treated as an affront to their territories, effectively uniting three nations against any invading force. Additionally, the alignment of Burkina Faso and to some extent Mali with Russia should be noted. This connection might lead to Russia's involvement in the conflict, with Putin's potential willingness to provide aid. While currently embroiled in Ukraine, Russia may not dispatch troops, yet the supply of substantial military equipment remains plausible. Such a situation could prolong the conflict, as achieving progress against a well-equipped adversary proves challenging. In the interest of maintaining regional peace and stability, ECOWAS should reconsider the notion of military intervention, considering the repercussions of cause and effect. Countries under threat are unlikely to passively await invasion, but would instead defend themselves and seek support. Consequently, predicting the outcome becomes considerably intricate, given the multitude of factors involved. Hence, the scenario in Niger diverges significantly from that of Ivory Coast. Any intervention in Niger could lead to increased involvement from various parties, differing from the situation in Ivory Coast where rebels had already established control over certain northern cities before advancing to Abidjan. The complexities of the Niger situation should not be underestimated. As time progresses, mounting pressure is pushing France to depart from Niger. This time around, Nigerians have taken to protesting the presence of the French military base in Niamey. Their protests extend beyond the French personnel's departure, encompassing their resistance to any potential military intervention by ECOWAS. Algeria stands as yet another nation firmly against any military intervention within Niger, and this sentiment holds weight. Their apprehensions are rooted in the distressing aftermath of the events in Libya, which were initially spearheaded by France and ultimately drew NATO's involvement. Akin to the Mali situation along their southern border, Algeria has experienced substantial security challenges for a significant span. Consequently, Algeria refuses to idly witness Niger's potential invasion, recognizing that warfare's dynamics are inherently unpredictable. Regardless of the appealing rhetoric surrounding terms like military intervention or declaration of war, the paths these actions take can quickly deviate from their intended courses, introducing unforeseeable outcomes. No nation seeks instability and ambiguity within its borders, as these conditions possess the potential to escalate and overflow across borders. Even the saber-rattling from figures such as Tinubu and ECOWAS generates uncertainty within Nigeria. Consequently, dissent is manifesting in Kano, where the populace voices their reluctance toward war in the Niger Republic. From an investment standpoint, both local and foreign investors would undoubtedly exercise caution in times of uncertainty. Such circumstances prompt a period of evaluation before committing capital. The uncertainties born from potential conflicts deter individuals from risking their finances. Even the prospect of launching a modest enterprise or renting a city stall becomes dubious in the face of sudden unrest. Uncertainty, as it stands, proves detrimental to business prospects. The looming possibility of Nigeria sliding into a recession emphasizes the need for the government to foster a peaceful environment rather than hasten its arrival. This entails creating conditions conducive to attracting both domestic and foreign investment. Recent rumblings suggest that Algeria might endeavor to provide Niger with electricity. Currently, approximately 70% of Niger's electricity is supplied by Nigeria, but this supply was curtailed following sanctions against Niger. However, Algeria's immediate capacity to fulfill this role seems limited, as no existing infrastructure links Algeria and Niger for electricity transmission. The establishment of power lines connecting these two nations will necessitate considerable time, rendering it an impractical immediate solution to Niger's power shortage. In parallel, the Chinese contractor engaged in the Kadanji Dam project in Niger has suspended their efforts due to frozen funds resulting from the sanctions against Niger after the military takeover. This freeze has obstructed the transfer of funds necessary for the project's progress. The Kadanji Dam, valued at $800 million, is intended to generate 130 megawatts of power, with an initial completion target of 2026. The suspension is anticipated to impact the project's timeline unless alternative funding channels are identified or circumventing banking channels becomes feasible. The prevailing sanctions, tied to the military's hold on power, create an atmosphere where resuming work remains doubtful. Furthermore, the completion of the crude oil pipeline linking Niger to Cotonou and the Benin Republic is now clouded in uncertainty. Originally slated for completion by year-end, the Chinese contractor handling the project must adhere to the Chinese government's advice for its citizens in Niger to evacuate urgently. War avoidance is paramount, considering the imminent threat of an ECOWAS invasion. The current events in Niger parallel Ivory Coast situation in 2011. When French-backed rebels advanced to Abidjan, many residents in Ivory Coast began to take evacuation measures. The situation in Niger shares parallels. However, it's worth noting that more foreigners reside in Ivory Coast compared to Niger. As the rebels reached Abidjan, many foreigners had either evacuated or sought refuge within the French military base. This led to the swift capture of Laurent Gbagbo, subsequently bringing Alassane Ouattara to power after a disputed election. France may be mulling a similar strategy for Niger, but the challenge lies in finding foot soldiers akin to the rebels employed in Ivory Coast. Gbagbo's ascendancy in Ivory Coast led him to distance himself from France, and subsequently, France sought a chance to counter him. This opportunity arose when Gbagbo contested the election results and clung to power, creating an opening for France's intervention. France enforced a United Nations resolution banning heavy equipment use between the Ivorian military and rebels, leveraging their influence as a permanent member of the UN. This intervention, while not absolving Gbagbo, highlights how political actions can plunge a nation into unwarranted conflict. African politicians' often self-serving nature exacerbates this situation, focusing on personal gains rather than the welfare of their populace. Alassane Ouattara, who employed force to unseat Gbagbo and seize power, proved to be no better. His plans to contribute Ivorian troops for a potential Niger invasion, framed as a democracy restoration endeavor, seem hypocritical, especially considering his political coup and efforts to amend the constitution for a third term. The parallels between Niger's and Ivory Coast circumstances call into question Ouattara's stance on democracy. Ultimately, many Ivorians suffered casualties in the conflict that brought him to power after Gbagbo's capture. Why do numerous Africans view political positions as inherent entitlements? While the Niger coup isn't justifiable, the significant distinction lies in its minimal casualties compared to past incidents in Ivory Coast and Nigeria's elections. The coup, while peaceful, sustains control without a state of disorder. Foreign concerns, particularly France and the US, stem from potential shifts in power dynamics. France fears losing sway due to the current regime, and the US worries over their military base's fate. France employs figures like Ouattara and Tinubu to advance its interests, yet both engaged in coups themselves. Thus, these dynamics beg the question, should Nigerians chart their political future or remain pawns for foreign interests? If you are watching our video for the first time, I suggest you subscribe to our channel for more interesting and captivating information. Turn on the bell notification to get alert on all our recent posts so you won't miss out any. Share your thought in the comment section and share these videos with family, friends, and concerned Nigerians. Thanks for watching.